Our first task today is to embed the cheese into these 24 pans, and we're dimpling it to the four corners to fill the pan. Now this dough's been sitting overnight. We got it to this stage yesterday, purposely left it for you to finish what I call the dimpling. And we want these dimples because they become flavor pockets, and you're going to dimple it right to the corners. You don't want to push so hard that you tear it. Don't tear it, just guide it. Guide it just a little more. But you're going to hold it up like that, and then this dough will rise around the cheese, and it will come up not even halfway up, but about an inch above where it is now over the time. And that cheese will be in the dough. It will still be showable, but it will be in the dough itself, and it will melt into the dough, and it will give us a pizza dough crust unlike any other pizza that you're going to be buying anywhere else. You're waiting, start dimpling from the center to the corners. Don't start at the outside, start from the center and work to the four corners. And then later you can go back and even it out. Kind of guide it right to the center, and then turn it, guide it right to the center, guide it right to the center, and then even it out. Quit it. Center, move to the corner.
And pop any bubbles, right?
Yeah, if they come up, pop. So today we're using, because we're in Philly, we're using Jersey fresh tomatoes. And I don't see this that often out there. You don't see it on the shelves in supermarkets. You don't see it on the West Coast where, as far as they're concerned, only California tomatoes are the ones to use. You don't see it in Italy where only Italian tomatoes are in use. Most of the Midwest and the industry tomatoes are dominated by companies like Hunt's. And you know what? None of the tomato products are bad. They're all good, they all work. We were lucky enough to have access to the Jersey Fresh, which is what I think Joe Badia uses at Pizzeria Badia, and a few other people use it. And I don't know how widespread it is, but I'm going to see if I can get it down in Charlotte, because I tasted this today and I just loved it. So this one comes out of the can almost perfect and ready to use. And then after you've had a chance to taste it, we're going to remove this and put it in the refrigerator. No, actually we're going to just move it out. We're not going to refrigerate it because we don't want it to be ice cold. How many of you have a Cuisinart? Oh yeah. So basically, this is a food processor made by the RoboCool company. It's bigger, it's more industrial size. Those of you who are in the restaurant business may have something of this size or close to it. If you have a great crust, you're delivering the flavors on a great flavor itself. It could live on its own. One of my inspirations, of course, was the Philadelphia Hoagie. I grew up in this area. I grew up in the mainline area. We had our go-to place. We had the Mama's cheesesteaks and hoagies and pizza. My favorite cheesesteak, in the world. It's my gold standard that I compare for cheesesteaks to. But other people who live here go, no, I like Angelo's or I like Alessandro's or whatever. There's great cheesesteaks. Cheesesteaks is like pizza. There's no bad cheesesteak unless they totally screw it up. But there are some that are better. Same with pizzas. There are some that are off the chart great, and then there's good pizza, which is 98% of the pizza. But then there's 2% of the pizza that is destination pizza. Tomorrow we'll be talking about with some experts here who are doing destination quality pizza at their places. That's our goal today, is to make a pizza that is worth the trip. And the criteria of what I call the difference between good and great is it memorable? When I was a kid, Mama's Pizza was my benchmark, and then I grew up and moved out of the area, and I moved to up to New England. I got to eat at Frank Pepe's in New Haven. I got to eat pizza all over the world, and I found out that there were other great pizzas out there. And at the same time, Mama's was kind of phasing out of the pizza game and focusing on cheesesteaks. And when the pizza maker there, Paul Sr., retired, he just didn't have anybody he felt that he could entrust his pizza dough to, because it was a little tricky, and so he changed the recipe. And I was the first to notice it. My brother, who lives here, didn't notice that the dough had changed, because it was still great pizza. And when I tasted it after not having it for a number of years, I said, they changed the dough. And he said, how do you know that? I said, it's just not the same as my memory. Maybe my memory's wrong, but it's not the same. So I went over there and I met Paul Jr., his son, who was taking over, who was already getting known for making this great cheesesteak. And I said, I got to ask you something. Did the pizza change? And he started laughing. And he said, you noticed? And I said, yeah. He said, yeah, when my dad retired, he changed the dough recipe. And I said, but now the pizza's kind of like maybe Pizza Hut level. And he said, I know. He says, but I don't care because I don't like pizza. I like cheesesteaks and hoagies. That's my passion. So we sell 75% cheesesteaks and hoagies and only 25% pizza. And now they don't sell pizza at all. With the hoagie as my inspiration, I thought my favorite hoagies, Mama's being also having a great hoagie back when I was a kid, and Lee's and a few other places that are known for their hoagies, they always have a good secret sauce that they put on it. It's usually vinegar based. It could be olive oil and vinegar, it could be oil and vinegar, it could be herbs and vinegar, it could be anything that they like. I like more of the chunky relish. There's a brand that you can buy in the supermarket called Harriton House. And also Cento makes something called hoagie spread. Both of those, and those hoagie spreads, you can just buy them. You don't have to make them yourself. But I said, I want to make one of these, and I want to make it part of the book. So we created our version of a hoagie spread. Okay, so I've got some cherry peppers in here. I saved the brine. So when Emilio was straining all this out, he saved the brine for us because we're going to use this to add back in to get the texture we want. I'm also going to put in some fresh garlic. This is twice as much as I need, so I'm going to put half the garlic in. And again, this is to flavor. It's just all about flavor. And then a little bit of fresh pepper. Now this is I like the flavor of a fresh bell pepper, red especially, or red jalapenos or red Fresnos. You know, the flesh of those peppers is different from these pickled peppers. Pickled peppers are, you can do it without any of this, but I put this in because I just think it adds a little bonus flavor. So, this has a little bit more pickly, vinegary flavor. This one has a little bit more, and salty. This one has a little bit more zing. Put a little bit of this in. Don't need a lot. This. It's not going to need any other adjustments, I don't think, except it doesn't need any more salt and it doesn't need vinegar. So I'm going to see if we can get all the rest of this stuff in. Get it all done in one shot. Testing the limits of this machine. Throughout the week with the students, so I said make as much as you want. And I needed more peppers. We have non-open jar peppers back there. The rest of these fresh peppers, the rest of our garlic. I mean, you're going to taste it. Tell me what you think. Looking pretty good. Natural stuff. Okay, I'm going to taste it once, then I'm going to give it to you. You can put it in some bowls for later. When you see their texture, it's like relish-like. Flour into the bowl. I like in my system. I do the dry ingredients first that I'm not holding back for later. I like to put those in first, and then the liquid last. So in this case, we've got our salt pre-measured. I think it's about. Does anybody have their packet open? You can tell me because I forget what the amount is. It's in grams and ounces, so you can use either. 12 grams. 12 grams of salt, which is about what is it, a teaspoon? And does it say it's like a teaspoon and a half? I think. Yeah. We're going to use instant yeast. You could use fresh yeast. You could use active dry yeast. But I wrote it for instant yeast, and you can, if you're using a different kind of yeast, you have to adjust depending on what you use. If it's active dry yeast, you use 25% more. If you're using fresh yeast, you use 3 times more. It's been a game changer for bakers, is understanding that it's really about fermenting the dough. You're transforming pretty much tasteless flour into something with complexity and depth and flavor that satisfies us at a deep, soul level. How does that happen? And that's what fascinates people about bread, is that this transformation process takes place. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the machine. And I'm not pouring the oil in yet, but I'm going to pour the oil in pretty rapidly because I want it to hydrate quickly. I'm going to hold back just a tiny bit of water in case there's any flour stuck on the bottom. What I'm getting here is a very wet, gloppy, what we call coarse, shaggy dough. It only takes about 30 seconds to get it to this point. We'll give it about a minute, and then we're going to take a look at it. Can you see it in the mirror? Okay, so when I stop it, I want you to see how coarse and shaggy it is. I'm not going to use flour. If I was making ciabatta dough, like bread, I would put flour instead, and because the flour in the dough, on the surface of the dough is part of the look of that bread. But we don't want flour spots, so we don't want the flour to be on the surface of this dough. We want it to be smooth and for pizza. So I've got a nice oil slick here. I've got a bowl scraper that I'm also going to oil so that the dough doesn't stick to it. and I'm going to try to get this dough off the paddle and onto the table. So with oil hands, I'll get this dough that's on the hook. And you see, and I'll pick up a piece of this dough and show you how much it's changed just in the time since we started. We've only been working on this for 5 minutes. So you can see that with the oiled bowl scraper, it kind of mostly slides off. And if it's starting to stick like that, I have more to take out. I'm going to go back. I don't want you to leave any dough left in the mixer because this is still pure product. I'm putting oil in my hands because it's not sticking to my hands. Well, oiled hands or wet hands, it won't stick. But just since we started mixing, when it was like pure putty, now it's holding together. You can see it's got structure. When I touch it, it feels like dough. It doesn't feel doesn't feel like batter. It feels like dough. Now, so I'm going to again use an oiled bowl scraper. You can use a metal blade also. And I'm going to get under it and flip it over, stretch it, and fold it over from all 4 sides. What was a coarse, shaggy dough has now become smooth. It's bouncy. I call it bouncy. That's my term for it. It sounds like a basketball that you're bouncing. You know, which, depending on which team you're rooting for. In my city, the Hornets, the sound of a bouncing basketball just gives you sadness. You know, here in Philadelphia, it gives you false hope. Okay. We're okay. I think we got a little bit more time. Oh, it's rising fast. So what I'm going to do on the pepperoni version, I'm going to put one layer of pepperoni down first. So the pepperoni is going to go under under the cheese, and then more pepperoni is going to go on top of the cheese. So we call this the pepperoni deluxe because it's like, you know, it pushes the envelope of a pepperoni pizza. The ones without the pepperoni are not going to, it's going to go the same without the pepperoni.
Doesn't the pepperoni have a provenance?
This particular one is boar's head, so that we don't know where that comes from. But they have a quality product, but they're not necessarily the one that most pizzerias use. These are more consumer items. Okay. But boar's head has a good. Until recently, they got in trouble with some E. coli or something, but not on their pepperoni. Every meat company sooner or later has a crisis, you know. I'm going to put a layer of cheese, and Amelia, do you know where's that other cheese, the shredded? Yeah, gotcha. I'm going to give it, the other half of the cheese. So we're going to put, what we already had. We're going to put more cheese on here because we want it to really cover the pepperoni. Beautiful. Let's open that up, and then I need one more little scoop. Put some on here so that the flavors just pop. So this is really, essentially, what's the word? Amplifying the flavors of the pepperoni, spices, and everything else.
Is the secret sauce a Detroit thing, or is that your thing?
That's my thing. Okay. I added it to the Detroit concept, but well, some people take credit for owning the Providence Detroit style, but Detroit style is evolving like every other kind of pizza is evolving. So I'm going to pop this in at 500 degrees, or we did it a little higher. And we're going to keep our eye on it. To tell me that it's done, I'm looking for the cheese to melt and get golden. I'm looking for the sides to brown up and get caramelization. We're getting real close on the sides. These are probably 2 minutes away, maybe. The way I test it is, and the nice thing about a metal table, we can land right here. The way I test it is, I need a bench blade. Let me check this for a second. You see it's breaking. You want to break the contact with the oven, with the pan. And you can see the frico forming on the outside. That was that. It didn't make a crown, but it did make. We got a beautiful edge, a frico crust. Bottom is brown. This pizza's done. And again, while it's hot like this, the sauce is going to heat up on it. It's not going to cook it, but it's going to heat it up. So this is our red stripes. By the time I get back to cutting, it will be, cooling a little bit. And the sauce, what we expect from the sauce, the acidity and the tomatoey, flavor will give it that flavor contrast to marry with the cheese. It's just like a good margarita pizza is sauce and cheese. That's what we want. And you could use basil on top to stay true to in a way, it's kind of a margarita style pizza. Or I like parsley because it's more bright green. And you can see a little goes a long way. And notice the difference between the garnished side and the ungarnished side. So cooking in professional situations is as much about presentation as well. It's always about flavor first, but presentation second. And so just see how much more eye appeal the little bit of garnish, which is a complementary flavor. The garnish has to be complementary, but what a difference that makes. So all of these are just variations on a theme. It's dough with something on it. It's as simple as that with pizza. And if you have great dough and great toppings, it'll be memorable.